Chapter 251 Chaotic Domain, Tao Sovereign. An old Taoist was meditating in the dark hall. He couldn't help but open his eyes when he heard the ancient bell ring. Eh? Another chaotic physique is born? Surprised, the old Taoist pinched his fingers to deduce, then his expression turned strange. How did this kid obtain the chaotic physique? The source of his soul doesn't come from the chaos, the old Taoist muttered to himself. The more he thought about it, the more he found it strange. He shook his head and laughed. He stopped thinking and closed his eyes again. The bell still echoed in the hall. It was long and ancient, as if time had silently passed without a trace. Hanju had a dream. He dreamed that when he woke up, he was still at home on Earth in his previous life. He was dizzy and confused. His phone suddenly rang. It was the doctor saying that there was a misdiagnosis. However, for some reason, Hanju was not happy. Instead, he was disappointed. Could it be that the 2,000 years of cultivation were all a dream? On careful thought, it was indeed like a dream. He had been cultivating most of the time and had not experienced much. Hanju returned to his normal life. Day after day, he was bored and numb. One night, he looked at the stars in the sky. Somehow, the stars were summoning him. Hanju didn't know when this dream ended. He only remembered that it was over when he saw all the stars in the night sky light up. Hanju looked up. The surroundings were chaotic and filled with mist. There was nothing, as if it was before the world opened. Hanju discovered that the chaotic chi in his body had soared and filled the billions of stars, replacing his dermic powers. The great Tao of life and death attached itself to the stars, connecting into a spectacular scroll, life and death painting. Hanju raised his right hand, and the life and death painting appeared in his palm. A mystical power condensed from the great Tao of life and death. It could even be said to be a Dharma treasure. Hanju retracted his hand and crushed the life and death painting. He would try the simulation trial when he returned. He began to look around. Where was this place? Why was there nothing? A figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Congratulations on awakening your chaotic physique. This is the chaotic domain. Only the consciousness of a chaotic lifeform can reach here. This figure walked over, but he couldn't see his true appearance. Hanju asked, "Are there many people who can enter?" This was like the Sword Tao River, but the threshold was too low. Not many, just you and me for the time being. Aren't there living beings in the chaotic forbidden zone? They're just failures who were expelled. They weren't born in the chaos. May I know your name? Divine Palace, Tao Sovereign. What about you? Heavenly Court, Sima E. Yes, we can find a chance to discuss the Tao in the future. Consolidate your cultivation first. With that, Tao Sovereign left. Hanju tried leaving as well. When he had this thought, his consciousness descended and returned to his body. When he opened his eyes again, Hanju saw everything in the connate cave abode. He took a deep breath. This was reality. He could feel that everything was real, and that dream about returning to his previous life seemed so superficial. In the dream, he was so muddle-headed, like a walking corpse. Hanju's expression changed. 171.251.237.87 He suddenly discovered that his soul had transformed. Chaotic chi wrapped around his soul, causing it to emit a faint glow. He sensed carefully, Emperor Realm. He finally sensed the aura of the Emperor Realm. This feeling was very strange and indescribable, but he could now sense that the Emperor Realm was not only powerful in terms of dermic powers, but also a transformation of the soul. As long as one's breath remained, one could live forever. System upgrade successful. A line of words appeared in front of Hanju, stunning him. That's it. How did it successfully level up? Hanju checked his interpersonal relationships. Di Hongya, rank 4 Immortal Emperor. She is from the Golden Crow Divine Clan. She had once given birth to 7 golden crows for her husband. The 2 youngest golden crows were expelled from the Golden Crow Divine Clan due to their poor potential. Di Hongya has always been concerned about them. She deduced that you have taken in the 2 golden crows and developed a favorable impression of you. If you kill the 2 golden crows, you will receive the hatred of Di Hongya, and she will not let go until you are dead. Current favorability, 3 stars, Heavenly Rage Buddha, rank 2 Immortal Emperor. Divine Buddha of the Buddhist sect. the previous owner of the ancient spiritual ginseng. He deduced that you helped the ancient spiritual ginseng resolve the love tribulation and developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 4.5 stars. The Divine General was a rank 6 Immortal Emperor, Jiang Yi was a rank 1 Immortal Emperor, the cultivation levels of the Heavenly Emperor, the Demon Emperor, and Tai Sutian were unknown. Was this how the Emperor realm was calculated? Were there a total of 6 or 9 ranks? Wow, how strong was the Heavenly Emperor? Wait. The Divine General had encountered the victorious fighting Buddha and was severely injured. How strong was the victorious fighting Buddha? Hanju was shocked and felt danger again. No, I've to reach the Emperor realm as soon as possible. Hanju thought silently. He no longer cultivated the heavenly cycle body tempering technique. Instead, he cultivated the 6 paths of reincarnation technique. Several days later, Hanju opened his eyes. Surprise flashed across his eyes. Indeed, after he comprehended the Tao insight, he was truly qualified to comprehend the 6 paths of reincarnation technique's method to become an emperor. 6 paths of reincarnation. Immortal Emperor. The Tao of reincarnation did not require providence. It transcended providence and could make him a perfect immortal emperor. Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. This was good too. He didn't need to reincarnate. Hanju immediately tried to attain the emperor realm. This time, he wanted to enter seclusion, so he told Tao Comprehension's sword to stay outside. In a majestic palace, in the Divine Palace, there were 2 rows of strange statues. Some were sinister, some were solemn, and some had pity on their expressions. A handsome man stood in the hall. He wore a green robe and had a sword at his waist. 3 spears floated behind him. Just by standing there, he emitted an invincible aura. He was Tao Sovereign. On the platform in front of him sat a white-haired old man. His eyes were closed as if he had already passed away. He emitted no aura at all. The heavenly court has given birth to a chaotic physique, the elder asked slowly. Tao Sovereign said expressionlessly, yes, he's called Sima Yi. The old man opened his eyes and said softly, in that case, the heavenly court is indeed qualified to stand on the same side as the divine palace. Tao Sovereign smiled faintly, with a hint of disdain. How have you been? The old man asked. Tao Sovereign's expression turned solemn. The heavenly devil race is extremely difficult to deal with. They also have the help of the Buddhist sect. Not long ago, I encountered the 9 treasures Buddha and was almost severely injured. The elder frowned and snorted. A Buddha actually interfered. The Buddhist sect is as shameless as ever. Go back and rest. Tao Sovereign nodded. He turned around and left. When he reached the entrance of the hall, he suddenly turned his head and said, don't target Sima Yi. I want to fight him after he grows up. With that, he vanished. The old man shook his head and laughed. Then, he opened his eyes completely. His gaze was cold as Sima Yi. How cautious. He actually used a fake name. This child doesn't seem like a prodigy. The old man muttered with an unfathomable tone. He stood up slowly, his body trembling as if he had not stood up for a long time. I should visit an old friend. Chapter 252. Becoming an Immortal Emperor, Perfect Immortal Emperor. In the blink of an eye, 30 years passed. Under the Fusong tree, Tao Comprehension's sword opened her eyes and worriedly looked at the connate cave abode. Tu Linger noticed her expression and asked with a smile, what are you worried about? Anyone in the world can fail in breaking through, but not Master. The others opened their eyes. The black hell chicken smiled. That's right, Master is so cautious. Sun Chang'an smiled and said, I'm looking forward to what Realm Master can reach. They were all very curious about Hanju's cultivation level. It seemed that no matter how strong they became, Hanju would always be unfathomable. Chu Shuren stared at the connate cave abode in deep thought. Zhou Mingyue sat beside him and chuckled. Master, I'm about to break through. Just wait for me to surpass you. Oh? Is that so? Then, I'll break through too, Chu Shuren said lazily. He didn't like to cultivate, but he didn't want to be surpassed by his disciple. Zhou Mingyue frowned, secretly unhappy. I don't believe I can't surpass you. Han 1 looked at Han 8 and asked, "Eighth brother, when will you break through?" Among the 8 brothers, Han 8 was the most talented. This was publicly acknowledged. He could even be considered the strongest in the hidden sect. Only Long Hao could compare to him in terms of talent, Han 8 said shyly, soon. Long Hao glanced at him and curled his lips. This Gord's talent was truly ridiculous. It even made him, the son of the Heavenly Emperor, feel pressure. Everyone chatted as they cultivated. Hanju's breakthrough stimulated everyone. They didn't want to be left behind further and further. Even the silently Yao was secretly exerting her strength. Inside the connate cave abode, Hanju had already entered the critical period of his breakthrough, and his soul was still transforming. When his soul completely transformed, he would officially become an immortal emperor. The 6 paths dharmic powers were also fusing with the great Tao of life and death and the chaotic qi. For some reason, Hanju felt that the chaotic qi in his body was not really chaotic qi. This was because he had sensed the chaotic qi. Previously, in the chaotic domain, the surrounding mist was very likely chaotic qi. However, compared to the qi in his body, there was a difference. He felt an obvious difference in strength. His qi was stronger. Hanju didn't insist on this question. It was fine as long as he was strong enough. In his body, the great Tao of life and death, the chaotic qi, and the 6 paths dharmic powers wrapped around his soul. With the help of the cultivation technique, they constantly modified his soul. He fell into an unprecedented state of peace. His heart was as calm as water. His attention was completely focused on breaking through. In the imperial garden of the heavenly court, the heavenly emperor and an old man were drinking in the pavilion. This old man was the old man who had spoken to Tao Sovereign, was the master of the divine palace. Heavenly emperor, can you let me take a look at your heavenly court's chaotic physique? The master of the divine palace asked with a smile. The heavenly emperor teased. Will you let me meet Tao Sovereign? Haha, you're still as cunning as ever. Let's not talk about the younger generation. It will probably take 1,000,000 years for him to mature. Since you're here, let's talk about how to uproot the demon court. Although the immortal world is big, the 4 overlords are making it too crowded. The Golden Crow divine clan has repeatedly invaded our divine palace. We can take advantage of the demon court they support. I'm very curious. How did you offend the Golden Crow divine clan? Nothing. It's just a conflict between prodigies. Di Hongya is too protective of her children. She's simply unreasonable. The master of the divine palace shook his head. He was rather helpless when mentioning this. Dre, the heavenly emperor, revealed a strange smile. If you want to blame someone, blame your divine palace's prodigies for being too arrogant. The Golden Crow divine clan is just as arrogant. The 2 overlords of the immortal world stopped talking about this and instead talked about how to scheme against the demon court. 7 years later, Hanju finally broke through. Emperor Realm. Rank 1 immortal emperor. The dharmic powers in his body began to increase as his soul sublimated. His stellar primordial body was completely activated as billions of stars resonated. Boom. The entire Cultivate diligently become immortal mountain shook violently. A terrifying aura enveloped everyone from the hidden sect. Even Fairy Shixian and Changyuer, who had just returned, couldn't help but walk out of their cave abodes, moved. Sun Chang'an muttered, this aura. Could it be? How is this possible? Immortal Emperor aura. He had also encountered a Buddha who had become an immortal emperor in the Buddhist sect. The pressure back then was unforgettable. The key was Hanju's age. Sun Chang'an understood Hanju in this life. He was less than 3,000 years old, an immortal emperor less than 3,000 years old. Unbelievable. Sun Chang'an couldn't control his excitement. Chu Shuren asked curiously, Uncle Master, Grandmaster is? The others couldn't help but look at Sun Chang'an. From his expression, he clearly knew something. It's nothing. Master just broke through successfully. All of you should cultivate well. To be honest, you're very talented. But compared to him, you're just mortals, including Junior Long Hao and Junior Han 8, Sun Chang'an said seriously. His words moved everyone. fairy Shishin and Changyuer couldn't help but look at each other. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. Hanju's disciples were extremely talented. Yet, they couldn't even compare to Hanju. How talented was he, on the other side, inside the connate cave abode? Just as Hanju was consolidating his cultivation, 3 lines of words appeared in front of him. Congratulations on becoming an immortal emperor. You have the following choices. 1. Immediately ascend and sweep through the immortal world. Your name will shake the heavens and seas. Great Providence. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a mystical power inheritance, and 3 supreme treasures. 2. Don't ascend for the time being. Continue cultivating and you can obtain 2 great Tao fragments. Hanju chose the second option without hesitation. He didn't want to ascend. You chose not to ascend and obtained 2 great Tao fragments. Congratulations on becoming a perfect immortal emperor. You have obtained 3 great Tao fragments, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, and a mystical power inheritance. Congratulations on obtaining the mystical power Great Sun Tathagata Palm. Great Sun Tathagata Palm, a Buddhist mystical power that uses the power of an immortal emperor to suppress almighty figures. The more negative karma the enemy has, the stronger the effect of this mystical power. Hanju's eyes lit up. Breaking through a major realm had a reward option. Previously, when facing the choice of becoming an immortal emperor, there were also 3 options. With the 2 combined, he obtained 5 great Tao fragments at once. Most importantly, Hanju had become a perfect immortal emperor. What happened to needing the great Tao and Providence? He had never fought for Providence. No matter how strong the Providence of the reroll world was, it was still a mortal world. Could it be related to his stellar primordial body? Hanju couldn't figure it out and could only attribute it to the stellar primordial body. He continued to consolidate his cultivation. He used his essence soul to leave his body and jumped out of the reroll world, was pleasantly surprised to find that even without a physical body, his essence soul was very strong. Killing Jiang Yi was not a problem. Was this an immortal emperor? No wonder he could live forever with just 1 breath remaining. Hanju didn't dare to jump too far, afraid that he would disturb the other mighty figures. Although he had reached the emperor realm, he was only the weakest rank 1 immortal emperor. His goal of reaching the Zenith Heaven realm was still far away. It took 8 years before Hanju's cultivation finally stabilized. From this day onwards, he was a true immortal emperor. Chapter 253 Trillion Years, Heavenly Devil Mission. Name, Hanju. Lifespan, 2677/54,112,999,999,999. Race, Immortal. Stellar Primordial Body. Cultivation, Rank 1 Reincarnation Immortal Emperor. Technique, 6 Paths of Reincarnation. Can be inherited. Heavenly Cycle Body Tempering. Great Tao. Great Tao of Life and Death. Magic, 54 trillion years of lifespan. Hanju was stunned. Something was wrong. Wasn't it said that the Immortal Emperor realm meant eternal life? Why did he still have a lifespan number? Hanju frowned and felt that something was wrong. After thinking for a moment, he took out the Heavenly Tao token to contact Di Taibai. What is it? Di Taibai sounded a little tired. Senior, are immortal emperors eternal existences? You can say that. But even immortal emperors will die. Has an immortal emperor lived for 1 trillion years? 1 trillion years? Perhaps. It's too long. I won't live that long, anyway. Hanju frowned. That made sense. How many people could live for so long? Not to mention trillions of years. Even 100 million years was long enough. The divine general was probably only a few million years old, but he was already capable of stirring up trouble. How powerful was an existence who had lived for trillions of years? When Hanju reached the deity realm, his lifespan would continue to increase. It was unimaginable. Hanju had the system to quantify the concept of immortality. The mortal emperors were immortal. Why would they fight? How many ancient existences were secretly spying on them now? After Hanju figured it out, he stopped thinking about it. The 2 of them exchanged a few pleasantries and hung up. In short, it was very difficult for him to die now. As for his lifespan, it was too far away. It was so far away that even the world might not last that long. Hanju took out the Book of Misfortune and the Heavenly Tao Spirit Stone and started to fuse the two together to increase the book's realm. Several days later, your Book of Misfortune has been upgraded to an Emperor Tao Supreme Treasure. Hanju smiled in satisfaction when he saw this line. He immediately started cursing. Starting from the victorious fighting Buddha.as he cursed, he checked his emails. The victorious fighting Buddha had yet to arrive. It looked like he had been stopped by the heavenly court. Your good friend Jiang Yi was attacked by an immortal emperor and was severely injured. Your good friend Divine General was attacked by an immortal emperor and was severely injured. Your grand disciple Feng Liang has comprehended the heavenly emperor's statue. His providence has increased greatly. Your good friend Ji Xianchen was attacked by evil ghosts, X37211. Your good friend Long Shan has reconstructed his body. Your disciple Su Qi spread bad luck. The providence of the Divine Palace is not affected. Your good friend Zhou Fan encountered a fortuitous encounter and learned a mystical power. Along the way, he couldn't see the word mighty anymore. They were all immortal emperors. The victorious fighting Buddha was really impressive. Even the Divine General and Jiang Yi couldn't stop him. Hanju was nervous. He had just stepped into the Emperor realm and definitely couldn't defeat the victorious fighting Buddha. He could only curse and stall for time. Hanju thought silently. Half a year later, he began to improve his sword Tao mystical powers, raising all of them to the limit. After making all the preparations, Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. It was time for the exam. It was time to test the results. Hanju's gaze became sharp, and he started the simulation trial. White-robed Buddha, insta-kill. Marshal Shinpeng, insta-kill. Jiang Yi, insta-kill. Against the heavenly emperor, Hanju was insta-killed. All others were insta-killed. After sweeping through all of them, Hanju suddenly felt bored. The only immortal emperor he had copied was Jiang Yi. Although Marshal Shinpeng had reached the emperor realm, that was after they had met.as for the heavenly emperor, he was most likely at the deity realm. Hanju couldn't win. After exhaling, he stood up and walked out of the connate cave abode. The disciples surrounded him the moment they saw him. Master, you broke through? Grandmaster, how strong are you now? Have you comprehended a mystical power or broken through? You're finally out. Facing the excited crowd, Hanju smiled and said, "All right, stop asking. I'm in a good mood today, so I'll preach the Tao to you." Everyone was pleasantly surprised. They missed Hanju too much. Huang Zuantian sat at the back and waited expectantly. Ever since he came to the Cultivate diligently become Immortal Mountain, he was increasingly convinced that his decision was correct. Look at how strong these hidden sect disciples were. He felt that without Hanju's help, just these disciples were enough to overturn the entire mortal world. I have to grasp the opportunity. Huang Zuantian thought firmly. In the endless void, a wise and mighty man sat on a lotus throne that shone with golden light. This person wore golden armor and a kasaya. He had a handsome face and a burly figure. The huge staff behind him was like a heavenly pillar that was tens of thousands of feet tall. It was the victorious fighting Buddha. The victorious fighting Buddha slowly opened his eyes. With a solemn expression, he said in a low voice, "Come out." In an instant, beams of light appeared in all directions, for a total of 24 beams. Victorious fighting Buddha, how dare you invade the heavenly court? You're courting death. Do you really think you can sweep through the heavenly court alone? Today is the day you die. Victorious fighting Buddha, hurry up and be executed. Voices followed, loud and domineering. The victorious fighting Buddha swept his gaze around and smiled disdainfully. I thought that it was really the arrival of the 24 Star Lords. In the end, it's only the second generation. Do you think you can kill me? Even if another 100 come, it still won't do. He felt disdain towards everything. The victorious fighting Buddha stood up and roared. He was like a ferocious beast, violent and savage. The figures of immortals quickly flew out from the 24 beams of light. A huge battle erupted again. 2 years later, Hanju returned to the connate cave abode, and Tao Comprehension's sword followed. Sitting on the bed, Hanju sent his consciousness into the depths of his soul and met the primordial chaos heavenly devil. After a long period of imprisonment, Hanju's 6 paths insignia had already entered the primordial chaos heavenly devil's body. He could kill it with a thought. He could control the primordial chaos heavenly devil's life and death. Do you still want to live? Hanju asked. The sleeping primordial chaos heavenly devil was immediately awakened. He hurriedly shouted, "Yes. I want to. I can do anything you want me to." He finally understood. Hanju definitely had a motive for killing him. Can you return to the chaotic forbidden zone and infiltrate the Buddhist sect in the future? Hanju asked. The primordial chaos heavenly devil gritted his teeth. Sure. What do you want me to do? Hanju said, just hide in the Buddhist sect. If possible, you can also think of a way to become a Buddha and try your best to climb your way up to power. I don't need you to do anything for me. If the Buddhist sect becomes my enemy in the future, you have to be useful. If the Buddhist sect doesn't disturb me, we will be strangers. The primordial chaos heavenly devil was pleasantly surprised. That's it, I agree. The primordial chaos heavenly devil quickly agreed. Hanju immediately released him. Dao Comprehension Sword saw a black shadow flying out from above Hanju's head. Then Black Shadow said respectfully, "Thank you for not killing me, Senior." With that, the primordial chaos heavenly devil quickly left. Dao Comprehension Sword asked curiously, "Master, what was that just now?" Hanju replied, "Just pretend you didn't see it." Then, he began to test the experts near the reroll world. Victorious Fighting Buddha, Rank 6 Immortal Emperor, Buddhist Sects Buddha. Chapter 254 Suppressing the Victorious Fighting Buddha. Victorious Fighting Buddha? Hanju became nervous when he saw this name. He immediately checked the location of the Victorious Fighting Buddha and discovered that he was hiding deep in the void and meditating to heal his injuries. Ever since the system had been upgraded, the detection range of the simulation trial had also increased. The Victorious Fighting Buddha was very far from the reroll world. Even ordinary Mahayana cultivators would take some time to rush over. Of course, if Hanju wanted to go, it would only take the blink of an eye. While the Victorious Fighting Buddha was healing, Hanju immediately entered the simulation trial. Several breaths later, Hanju opened his eyes with a strange expression. Was that all the Victorious Fighting Buddha could do? He could seriously injure the Divine General and Jiang Yi with this level of strength. Hanju felt that he was only several times stronger than Jiang Yi. He wasn't powerful to an extremely terrifying extent. Wait, could it be because of his injuries? It was very likely. Hanju was deep in thought. This fellow was severely injured and still dared to come. Could it be that he was plotting something? Hanju was vigilant and felt that something was wrong. He took out the Heavenly Dao token and contacted deities. Soon, the Divine Sense connection was successful. Senior, how's the situation with the Victorious Fighting Buddha? Hanju asked. Deities smiled and said, "He's already severely injured. His strength is less than 10%. However, for some reason, His Majesty ordered us to stop pursuing him. Perhaps he's giving the Buddhist sect some face." He was severely injured. This was real, not an illusion. Hanju's eyes lit up. Why did the Heavenly Emperor do this? It was impossible for him to give the Buddhist sect face. If that was the case, why would he let the Victorious Fighting Buddha approach the reroll world? There was only one possibility. The Heavenly Emperor wanted to test Hanju's strength. Hanju immediately understood. In that case, I'll kill him. To prevent future trouble, I'll take his life when he's down. Hanju used the system to suppress his superficial cultivation level to the Grand Unity True Immortal Realm. Then, he stood up and left the cave abode, jumping into the void. The previous simulation trial had already proved that the current Victorious Fighting Buddha was not his match. He quickly flew towards him, sensing his aura. The Victorious Fighting Buddha, sitting on the golden lotus, opened his eyes, scanned with his divine sense, and discovered that the person was only a Grand Unity True Immortal. He immediately let down his guard. The mortal world was the mortal world. After all, no wonder the white-robed Buddha was willing to stay here. With his cultivation level, he could do whatever he wanted in the mortal world. At the same time, this also proved that the white-robed Buddha was not imprisoned here, but had submitted to the heavenly court. the victorious fighting Buddha's thoughts were like lightning. He thought of many things. At this moment, Hanju flew towards him. Who are you? Why are you in my mortal world? Hanju asked carefully. The victorious fighting Buddha said indifferently, I'm here to find someone. Pretend you didn't see me. Strangely, Heavenly Court did not send anyone to pursue him. Were there not enough heavenly generals? The victorious fighting Buddha secretly felt disdain. He had indeed killed many heavenly soldiers and generals. Even the divine general had been severely injured by him. Hanju asked nervously, Who are you looking for? The victorious fighting Buddha said impatiently, What does it have to do with you? At this moment, Hanju suddenly attacked. The primordial judgment sword appeared in his hand almost instantly. He raised his sword and slashed out. Terrifying sword chi erupted, resplendent in the void. Heavenly Sword Tao. Second level, severing karma. The victorious fighting Buddha's expression changed drastically, and he subconsciously raised his arms to block. He crossed his arms and used his great dermic powers to block. Boom, sword chi swept past. In an instant, the victorious fighting Buddha felt unstoppable killing intent. Unconsciously, something on his body was severed. It was karma. Impossible. What sword technique could actually sever karma? A storm brewed in the victorious fighting Buddha's heart. He suddenly stood up and raised his right arm, causing a huge golden pillar to appear in his palm like an ant raising a tree. It was extremely exaggerated. Hanju's expression was cold as he directly used 3 pure world cleansing. First used the heavenly sword Tao to sever the karma between the victorious fighting Buddha and the Buddhist sect, preventing them from deducing him. Next was the true battle. The sea of 9 layers of sword chi appeared behind Hanju. Countless sword shadows condensed and attacked the victorious fighting Buddha. The victorious fighting Buddha roared, understanding that the other party was not a grand unity true immortal emperor. Indeed, Heavenly Court did not give up. The victorious fighting Buddha was born to fight. How could he escape? He suddenly jumped up and rushed towards Hanju with unstoppable momentum. In an instant, he was drowned by the millions of sword shadows. Hanju quickly waved his sword, causing sword shadows to appear endlessly. He waved his sword as he counted down, 6, 5. Hanju was vigilant, preventing the victorious fighting Buddha's essence soul from escaping. When he counted to 1, the victorious fighting Buddha couldn't withstand it, and his body was torn apart. He couldn't block it at all. How can this be? The victorious fighting Buddha was frightened. His essence soul immediately fled. Hanju was already prepared. He used the 5 elements divine light, and a 5-colored beam of light shot out from his sleeve. The 5 elements divine light was an ancient mystical power with extremely strong offensive power. It could forcefully snatch an enemy's dharma treasure and forcefully break through array formations. It could also steal souls. The victorious fighting Buddha instinctively sensed danger and turned around, then was swept away by the 5 elements divine light and flew back into Hanju's sleeve. Hanju glanced over and discovered that the victorious fighting Buddha's body had reformed again. As long as there was a piece of flesh, the victorious fighting Buddha could quickly condense his body. Hanju immediately cast a spell and imprisoned his body before putting it into his sleeve. He turned around and flew towards the reroll world. In a Taoist temple, the white-robed Buddha was dumbfounded and trembled in fear. Impossible. The victorious fighting Buddha had been suppressed. He wasn't a match at all. The white-robed Buddha wasn't an immortal emperor, after all. He couldn't tell that the victorious fighting Buddha was severely injured. The aura of the battle between Hanju and the victorious fighting Buddha was enough to make him shiver. Who exactly is he? The white-robed Buddha was terrified but also glad. No wonder the Supreme Buddha wanted to hide here. No wonder the son of the heavenly emperor also acknowledged Hanju as his master. So Hanju was a peerless mighty figure. White-robed Buddha's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability, 5.5 stars. Hanju looked at the line of words in front of him indifferently. He sat on the bed and cast his consciousness into the sea of stars in the depths of his soul. The victorious fighting Buddha was imprisoned by the great Tao of life and death and could not move. He panicked. Who are you? The victorious fighting Buddha shouted in horror. He was extremely nervous. His soul couldn't escape. He felt the aura of death. Hanju wanted to ask, but after thinking about it, he didn't know what to ask. Since he had already offended him, he couldn't let the victorious fighting Buddha go. He immediately activated the dermic powers and chaotic chi in the billions of stars to kill him. The victorious fighting Buddha was a rank 6 immortal emperor, after all. Even if he was severely injured, it was not so easy to kill him. However, Hanju had plenty of time. He didn't believe that the victorious fighting Buddha was really Sun Wukong, who couldn't be killed by the 8 trigrams furnace. Heavenly Court, Imperial Garden. The Heavenly Emperor put down his wine cup and sighed. Good kid. I didn't overestimate you, after all. Sitting in front of him was the Crown Prince. Long Jun asked curiously, Father, you mean? The Heavenly Emperor did not answer. Instead, he asked, have you found anything? Yes, the last time Immortal Emperor Samsara appeared was in the Dark Forbidden Zone. He seemed to be looking for something. Chapter 255 Immortal Emperor Samsara, Legend of the Immortal World. Immortal Emperor Samsara is illusory, but he often leaves behind his inheritance. He has a special method to make people his descendants. As for his origins, it has always been an unsolved mystery. In the future, you will be responsible for investigating this matter, the Heavenly Emperor said casually. Long Jun nodded but was still puzzled. He asked, could it be that someone in the Heavenly Court has become Immortal Emperor Samsara's descendant? It was impossible for the Heavenly Emperor to investigate Immortal Emperor Samsara for no reason. The Heavenly Emperor smiled. That's right. It's not only the Heavenly Court. There are also the Divine Palace, Buddhist sect, Demon Court, and even the Tao sect. I suspect that Immortal Emperor Samsara is up to something. Long Jun was deep in thought. The Heavenly Emperor didn't say anything else and turned to look at the sky. His eyes were filled with anticipation. 10 years later, Hanju finally obliterated the victorious fighting Buddha's soul. He heaved a sigh of relief. Now, there was one less emperor around. With the victorious fighting Buddha around, Hanju didn't dare to cultivate, afraid that something would happen. As for the victorious fighting Buddha's body, Hanju decided to keep it. After losing his soul, this body had no consciousness and could not move. However, Hanju could feel the terrifying power it contained. However, he still had to be on guard to prevent the victorious fighting Buddha's body from producing another soul. Hanju took out the Book of Misfortune and started cursing the enemy to relax. Fortunately, he had used the heavenly sword Tao to sever karma, so no one in the Buddhist sect hated him now. It was already difficult for the Buddhist sect to deduce in the Heavenly Court's territory. In addition, it was impossible for the Buddha to keep staring at the victorious fighting Buddha. Hanju had cut off the karma between the victorious fighting Buddha and the Buddhist sect with lightning speed. It was equivalent to cutting off the surveillance video. Even the Buddha ancestor wouldn't know who had killed the victorious fighting Buddha. They probably hated the Heavenly Emperor. The more Hanju thought about it, the more relieved he felt. He began to check his emails. Recently, the Heavenly Court had been peaceful again. Most of his friends had not encountered any trouble. Only Ji Xianchen and Huang Jihao were grinding levels. He could finally continue cultivating. Hanju thought happily. He suddenly thought of something and called Huang Zuentian in. Tao Comprehension Sword was expelled by him. Next was confidential information. Huang Zuentian knelt in front of Hanju, feeling uneasy. Hanju said, I'm prepared to let you ascend and join a force, just like before. Before that, if you have any needs, just tell me. Huang Zuentian was excited. It was time to contribute. Huang Zuentian said, I don't dare to ask for too much. Your preaching has already benefited me greatly. Hanju thought for a moment and took out a heavenly peach. He said, take it. It can increase your cultivation level. After that, you can ascend directly. Think of a way to go to the outer seas of the immortal world and join the Jie school. You should know what to do after joining them. Hanju wanted him to go to the Buddhist sect, but Huang Zuentian came from the reroll world. The victorious fighting Buddha had died here, so it was impossible for the Buddhist sect to not be wary. The Jia school was different. At the moment, Hanju had yet to have any conflict with them. However, he had a feeling that it would happen sooner or later. not to mention the conflict between the Jie school and the Heavenly Court. Two cultivators from the Jie school had previously caused trouble in the Sword Dao River. Hanju had to be wary. Huang Zuantian was excited. He hurriedly thanked him and took the heavenly peach. Hanju waved his hand and gestured for him to leave. After a while, Dao Comprehension Sword entered and asked curiously, "Master, do you still have any peaches left?" Hanju closed his eyes and said, "No." Dao Comprehension Sword was disappointed. He continued to cultivate. The 6 paths of reincarnation technique had the cultivation method of an immortal emperor, but there was no method to break through to the deity realm. However, the deity realm was currently too far away from Hanju. He didn't have to think about it for the time being, and in the future, he might be able to rely on gathering all the great Dao fragments to obtain the method to reach the deity realm. Rank 1 Immortal Emperor was not strong enough. A rank 6 Immortal Emperor died so easily, let alone him. He couldn't be careless, Hanju thought silently, and the netherworld. In an abyss. Ji Xianchen leaned against the mountain wall and gasped. He tried his best to calm down and meditate. A ball of black aura floated above his head. He smiled teasingly. "You're really ruthless. Are you still going to continue killing? You're only 3,000 years old and already a grand unity mystic immortal. Such potential is top-notch even in the Divine Palace. You can relax." Ji Xian's divine eyes did not open as he said, "I've never compared myself to the Divine Palace. My target is stronger." "Oh? Who is it?" "This person has no reputation, but his talent is definitely the number 1 in the myriad worlds. I want to defeat him forcefully the next time we meet." As soon as he finished speaking, Ji Xianchen suddenly opened his eyes, which shone brightly. "Guan Yu, wait, no, Cao Cao, I will definitely defeat you." Ji Xianchen was very excited just thinking about it. The thought of Hanju lying on the ground and looking at him in disbelief made him shiver in excitement. Awesome. He couldn't think about it anymore. Ji Xianchen adjusted his emotions and continued circulating his energy. The black aura suddenly said, "There's a big fellow approaching. This fellow's negative karma is extremely terrifying. He has probably devoured more than 10 million souls. You have to be careful." Hearing this, Ji Xianchen immediately stood up and prepared to fight. There were no clouds for 10,000 miles. Above the sea was an island. On the island, there was a valley where hundreds of cultivators were meditating. Xian Qingjun was among them. She wore a Taoist robe and had an otherworldly aura. She stared at a middle-aged Taoist floating in midair. A lecture that lasted for decades had just ended. The disciples of the Jie school raised their questions one after another, and Xian Qingjun listened quietly. At this moment, a male disciple suddenly asked, "Master, what's the purpose of our cultivation? Why does the Jie school exist?" The atmosphere immediately tensed up. None of the disciples dared to whisper. They were also concerned about this. Ever since the Jie school attacked the Heavenly Court hundreds of years ago and was wiped out, they had become a joke everywhere. Be it the humans, demons, or even other races, they were all mocking them. The Jie school had once dominated the immortal world. With their foundation, every disciple had ambitions. How could they be willing to be mocked? The middle-aged Taoist said expressionlessly, "The Tao sect is the foundation of the world. However, the Jie school has indeed committed too many sins in the past. Now, we're paying our debts for our ancestors. After paying our debts, the Jie school will naturally return to its peak." The male disciple asked, "What about the grudge between the Jie school and the Heavenly Court?" The middle-aged Taoist glanced at him and said, "It's not time for revenge yet." The disciples began to whisper, "You should learn from your eldest senior brother. Our lineage might look glorious, but among the disciples, we rely on your eldest senior brother solely." The middle-aged Taoist said calmly. Someone asked, "Is eldest senior brother about to reach the Emperor realm?" The middle-aged Taoist said, "That's right. He's at the juncture of breaking through. He can reach the Emperor realm in at most 100 years. Emperor realm. The disciples were in an uproar and had looks of admiration. Xian Qingjun looked forward to it too. Immortal Emperor. To her and the other disciples, it was a supreme existence comparable to the heavenly Tao, even in the entire immortal world. immortal emperors were legends, Xian Qingjun sighed. She knew that it was almost impossible for her to reach the emperor realm with her potential. She couldn't help but think of Hanju. That kid's talent was ridiculously strong. He should have the hope of becoming an immortal emperor. She wondered if she could live until that day. Chapter 256 Huang Zuantian enters the GS school, ranking of the reroll world. 12 years later, Huang Zuantian ascended with his cultivation at the Grand Unity Loose Immortal Realm. After ascending, he was baptized by the Heavenly Tao and directly promoted to a Grand Unity Earth Immortal. It was still very beneficial to transcend the tribulation. After Hanju learned from his interpersonal relationships that Huang Zuantian's cultivation had increased, he couldn't help but wonder if his cultivation would also increase if he ascended now. On second thought, something was wrong. He had already been to the immortal world more than once. It was probably useless to transcend the tribulation now. Moreover, the immortal emperor tribulation was probably very terrifying. He hadn't transcended the tribulation before because the system's Tao field had isolated him. He didn't want to take the risk. After dealing with the victorious fighting Buddha, Hanju's days became leisurely again. He began to allocate more time to nurture the hidden sect disciples. After so many years of transformation, the overall strength of the reroll world was also rapidly becoming stronger. The number of Mahayana cultivators increased several times, and more loose immortals appeared. Not long later, perhaps the limit of the world would increase to the Earth Immortal Realm or even higher. The stronger the heavenly Tao was, the higher the cultivation level it could endure. The immortal Qi and spirit Qi of the Cultivate diligently become immortal mountain had already reached an extremely dense state. Now, Xinghong Xian, Fairy Shi Xian, and Changyuer no longer went out to train and focused on cultivating. On this day, Hanju called Li Yao into the cave abode alone, and Tao Comprehension's sword waited outside. Li Yao was extremely nervous, not knowing what he wanted her to do. Hanju asked her to sit down. Seeing her pretending to be calm, he couldn't help but find it funny. Too cautious, Hanju smiled and said, "Don't be nervous. I won't eat you. I'm just concerned about your cultivation. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I still have to teach the others later." Li Yao came to a realization and felt a little awkward. Bah, how could she think of her senior like that? It was all the Black Hell Chicken's fault. He often said that Hanju had many women. See, she had been here for so long, but she had never seen her senior having such hobbies. Indeed, even chickens would lie. Li Yao started to tell Hanju her recent questions about cultivation. After reaching the Immortal Emperor realm, he had comprehended the key to all techniques in the world. To Hanju, Li Yao's questions were so simple. A month later, Hanju asked Li Yao what mystical power she wanted to learn. She wanted to learn a mystical power of movement or teleportation. How cautious, Hanju retorted in his heart and taught her the somersault cloud. After Li Yao was Tulinger. Hanju taught her 3 heads 6 arms and imitate heaven and earth. Tulinger had too many wild thoughts. While imparting the mystical powers, she kept approaching him. Before she left, she was still reluctant. Time passed. 20 years passed quickly. All the disciples of the hidden sect had surpassed the Mahayana realm, including Zhou Mingwei, Xinghong Xian, Fairy Shi Xian, and Changyuer had all reached the tribulation transcendence realm. Hanju was secretly disappointed. It seemed that the 3 of them could only continue cultivating. He still wanted to wait for the 3 women to pass away and reincarnate to refresh their potential. But it seemed impossible now. He didn't want to die, and neither did the others. After teaching everyone on the Cultivate diligently become Immortal Mountain, Hanju began to cultivate. Unfortunately, his cultivation speed was not fast. Immortal emperors cultivated the soul and the great Tao. Although immortal Qi was still effective, it was not as effective as before. Regardless, as long as he could steadily increase his strength, Hanju would be satisfied. On this day, Hanju left his cultivation state. He took out the Book of Misfortune and started cursing the enemies while checking his emails. Your enemy Heavenly Rage Buddha has transformed under your curse. His devil heart wants to possess him. Your good friend Jiang Yi was attacked by an immortal emperor and was severely injured. Your good friend Ji Xianchen has devoured the soul of a ghost deity. His soul has transformed. Your grand disciple Morong Chi was attacked by heavenly troops, X450321. Your good friend Mo Zhu encountered a blessed grotto heaven by chance. Her providence has increased greatly. Your disciple Su Chi spread bad luck. The providence of the divine palace is not affected. Your good friend Zhang Guxing has broken through his limits and his sword Dao has increased greatly. Your good friend Huang Zuantian has joined the Jie school. Han Ju raised his eyebrows. Huang Zuantian joined the Jie school so quickly? It's only been 20 years. It seemed that the threshold of the Jie school was not as high as Han Ju imagined, right? After all, the Jie school was a sect abandoned by the heavenly Dao. It had its own rules. Han Ju didn't start to expect Huang Zuantian to make a move. He understood him. Although this fellow was good at seizing power, he was very cautious. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't fight for power. Huang Zuantian had snatched the position of sect master twice because he was afraid that others would cause trouble. Therefore, he decided to unify the sect himself and bring the entire sect along to cultivate. Han Ju had plenty of time to wait. Several months later, Han Ju's curse session ended. He took out the Heavenly Dao token and checked the Heavenly Dao tablet. Wow, the reroll world had already made it into the top 100. He had really been hard on the Heavenly Court and the white-robed Buddha. Han Ju shook his head and laughed. He knew why the Heavenly Emperor was raising the reroll world so much. He wanted to attract powerful enemies and kill them through him. Han Ju didn't reject it. Although it didn't match his style, he had obtained so many benefits, he should help Heavenly Court. With this in mind, Han Ju couldn't help but check the area near the reroll world. Immortal Monarch Gong Chen, Perfected Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm, Supreme Ancestor of the Grand Desolate Sacred Dynasty, Grand Desolate Sacred Dynasty? Han Ju's eyes flashed coldly. He remembered that the Grand Desolate Sacred Dynasty had captured Su Chi. He didn't expect that they would still dare to come to the reroll world, courting death. At the same time, in the depths of the void, Immortal Monarch Gong Chen looked at the reroll world from afar with a hesitant expression. He wore a grey Taoist robe and had a jade-like face. His hair was tied up under his crown, giving him an immortal aura. The rankings of this world are rising extremely quickly below the Heavenly Court. If the Great Desolate Sacred Dynasty can preach in this world and attract the Ascenders, we will definitely become even stronger in the future. However, he could sense the aura of the white-robed Buddha. There was a Grand Unity Golden Immortal hiding here, and he was no weaker than him. This was difficult. He couldn't force it. Immortal Monarch Gong Chen immediately sent a voice transmission to the white-robed Buddha. Soon, the white-robed Buddha appeared in front of him and sized him up warily. Immortal Monarch Gong Chen's expression changed. He hurriedly cupped his fists and said, "So it's the white-robed Buddha. Why are you here?" Previously, he had only sensed the white-robed Buddha's aura and did not dare to rashly probe with his divine sense. "You are?" The white-robed Buddha frowned. In the long years, he had met many people. It was impossible for him to care about everyone. Immortal Monarch Gong Chen replied, "I'm Immortal Monarch Gong Chen of the Grand Desolate Sacred Dynasty. I once met you at a heavenly immortal gathering." They had indeed met once. But they hadn't even spoken. At that time, the white-robed Buddha was the center of attention. He could only watch enviously and did not even have the courage to greet him. "Oh, why are you here?" the white-robed Buddha asked expressionlessly. Actually, he had already guessed it. He just did not want to easily acquire more enemies. The other party was a Grand Unity Golden Immortal. After all, Immortal Monarch Gong Chen went straight to the point and revealed his intentions. The white-robed Buddha did not immediately reject. In fact, this was a good thing. It could give the reroll world another backing. The Heavenly Court's main focus was on the immortal world. They didn't care much about the mortal worlds, so they couldn't always rely on the Heavenly Court. At that moment, the white-robed Buddha's expression changed. He looked up at Immortal Monarch Gong Chen and asked with a strange expression, "Do you know Su Chi?" Chapter 257 Three Great Generals, Immeasurable Calamity. Su Chi? Immortal Monarch Gong Chen frowned and said, "The jinx of the Heavenly Court? I know him. We even captured him before and wanted to seize his divinity. Didn't the heavenly court abandon him? The white-robed Buddha's expression became even stranger. He sighed. Immortal monarch Gong Chen was even more puzzled. He had investigated before. The immortal world detested the jinx. Even if he captured Su Qi, he wouldn't offend anyone. At this moment, the white-robed Buddha suddenly attacked. A Buddhist seal shot out from his right palm, startling immortal monarch Gong Chen so much that he hurriedly dodged. Senior, you. Immortal monarch Gong Chen shouted in anger. The white-robed Buddha couldn't be bothered to explain and continued attacking. A huge battle erupted inside the connate cave abode. Hanju watched the battle with relish. The white-robed Buddha was about to reach the Emperor realm, after all. He was naturally stronger and could completely crush immortal monarch Gong Chen. Hanju ordered him to kill this person. If he fled, the white-robed Buddha could forget about staying in the reroll world. It was rare for Hanju to ask the white-robed Buddha to help, so he naturally wouldn't be merciful, was thinking of showing off. The battle lasted for half a day. Although the cultivators couldn't see the battle in the void, they felt inexplicably nervous. They thought that something had happened to their cultivation. Immortal monarch Gong Chen died in the end. Even his soul was destroyed. The white-robed Buddha did not want to leave behind any trouble. If he had to kill, he would do it thoroughly. After that, the white-robed Buddha didn't visit Hanju. He knew that he had already seen the fight, so he returned to the Taoist temple to cultivate. Hanju sighed. It's good to have subordinates. Dao Comprehension Sword asked curiously, who are you talking about? Cultivate well. If anyone invades the reroll world in the future, you can help instead of being a useless flower waving in front of me. I'm a grass, not a flower. It's the same. Did someone just invade the reroll world? Who? Dao Comprehension Sword asked curiously. Then, she was chased out of the connate cave abode. The others saw her being thrown out and couldn't help but be curious. Could it be that Master was breaking through again? Dao Comprehension Sword was embarrassed. She pretended that nothing had happened and walked to the side to meditate. In the numinous palace, immortals gathered. A domineering figure stood in the hall and said proudly, Your Majesty, since the divine general is injured, he can rest now. From now on, leave the heavenly troops to me. The immortals whispered among themselves, but no one dared to refute. This immortal was extremely famous. The heavenly court had 3 great generals: Divine General, Martial God General, and Heavenly God General. This was the Martial God General. The Martial God General had attained the Tao for millions of years and was already an immortal emperor. His strength was unfathomable. He had always suppressed the extreme north of the immortal world and rarely returned to the heavenly court. The heavenly emperor smiled. Since the northernmost area can no longer be defended, you can stay in the heavenly court. Hearing this, the Martial God General's smile froze. He was embarrassed, and his aura weakened. Crown Prince Long Jun, who was standing in front, asked curiously, Martial God General, why can't the northernmost area be defended? The Martial God General coughed and said, the ancient great rock has awakened. He has already unified the demons in the extreme north. The immortals were in an uproar and disgust. Long Jun frowned. D Tai Bai looked at the heavenly emperor and said, Your Majesty, the demons have indeed revived many ancient existences recently. I'm afraid it's not a coincidence. Although the demon court has lost not long ago, we have to be wary. The conflict between the heavenly court and the demon court had lasted for countless years, so long that many immortals had not lived that long. It was unknown how long the endless battle would last. I understand. This is also the reason why I brought back the 2 generals. The Heavenly God General will also return soon. He has already stepped into the deity realm, the Heavenly Emperor said casually. Deity realm. The immortals were moved. The Martial God General secretly clenched his fists. Among the 3 great generals, the Heavenly God General was the oldest and most mysterious. He hadn't appeared for 5 million years. Even the Divine General had never seen him. The Martial God General had only seen the Heavenly God General once. That time, he had him challenged and lost miserably. If not for the Heavenly Emperor stopping him, he would have been destroyed in body and soul. Every time he thought of this, the martial god general was very displeased. If he couldn't defeat the heavenly god general, he wouldn't be the strongest general in the heavenly emperor's mind. Looking at the divine general, he was talented and would surpass him sooner or later. He even had a chance to surpass the heavenly god general. How could he not be vexed? The immeasurable calamity has descended. Our heavenly court and the demon court will likely be the ones dealing with this calamity. I hope that all the immortals are prepared. The heavenly court has already endured several immeasurable calamities. We can also survive this. The heavenly emperor scanned the immortals and said word by word. All the immortals were shocked, and the atmosphere became oppressive. Immeasurable calamity. It represented destruction and despair. The ancient existences who had experienced the immeasurable calamity were all terrified. An old immortal said slowly, "Perhaps this is the reason why the Tao sect is restless. The so-called immeasurable is merely the balance of the heavenly Tao. If you want to live, you have to be prepared and not be careless." Taibai asked, "South Extreme Old Immortal, what did you calculate?" Everyone looked at South Extreme Old Immortal, including the heavenly emperor. "I saw the immortal gods transforming into a rain of blood. Demons filled the sea. Buddhas and devils compete. The great Tao perished." South Extreme Old Immortal's words were filled with vicissitudes as if he had already experienced the endless calamity of the future. The heavenly emperor frowned and asked, "Did you deduce the person to face the calamity?" South Extreme Old Immortal said, "Not in the heavenly court, not in the demon court, and definitely not in the divine palace or the Buddhist sect. As for who he is, I can't deduce it for the time being. I can only deduce that he came from the mortal world and has a supreme heart." From the mortal world, all the immortals fell into deep thought. The heavenly emperor couldn't help but think of Hanju. However, did Hanju have a supreme heart? This kid is too cowardly. 30 years passed in a flash. Hanju was cultivating in the cave abode when 3 lines of notifications suddenly appeared in front of him. Detected that the immeasurable calamity has begun. You have the following choices. 1. Immediately ascend and fight for Providence. Prepare for the immeasurable calamity. You can obtain a mystical power inheritance, a supreme treasure, and a great Tao fragment. 2. Continue cultivating and stay away from the battle for Providence. Stay true to yourself and you can obtain a great Tao fragment. Hanju raised his eyebrows. Immeasurable calamity. According to the novels he had read in his previous life, the so-called immeasurable calamity happened when all the living beings under the heavenly Tao developed to their peak and even threatened the heavenly Tao itself. The heavenly Tao needed to destroy everything and restart again. This rule was evident all the time, everywhere. In ancient times, when an official surpassed the emperor in merit, it would be time to eliminate them. There were too many locusts and bullfrogs. People would definitely get rid of them. Even in his previous life, when he watched a superhero movie, a certain Thanos also followed this rule. After reaching the peak, decline would follow. Reincarnation was a cycle, and balance was the best rule. Hanju immediately chose the second option. Wasn't his cultivation level akin to becoming cannon fodder by participating in the immeasurable calamity? I'm too unlucky. I've only lived for 2,000 years and I'm about to encounter the immeasurable calamity? Hanju thought bitterly. No, he had to ask. Hanju was about to take out the heavenly Tao token when a voice sounded in his mind. Master, the Sword Tao River is in trouble. Someone is refusing to leave. Liu Bei's tone was extremely aggrieved. Chapter 258 Pan Xin, Great Traversal Divine Shadow. Someone was looking for trouble in the Sword Tao River again. Hanju frowned. He suddenly felt that this was a tough job. He immediately jumped into the Sword Tao River and arrived before Liu Bei. Liu Bei heaved a sigh of relief when he saw him. He immediately pointed in a direction. Hanju turned around and saw a wretched back view. The man had his back to them. His right shoulder shook, and his right hand seemed to be groping in front of him. He was as thin as a match. Hanju immediately thought of an image. He immediately asked, "What are you doing?" The person did not turn around or answer. Hanju asked in a low voice, "If you don't speak, I can only ask the Heavenly Emperor about this." Because this was not the reroll world, Hanju couldn't detect the other party's cultivation. To be safe, he had to use his strongest trump card. However, the other party was still indifferent. So arrogant, Hanju was annoyed and prepared to use the power of the Sword Dao River to expel the other party. Boom! The entire Sword Dao River began to fluctuate violently. All the figures advancing vanished. At this moment, the thin figure suddenly stopped moving. He turned his head and said, "Junior, why so rash?" "I just want to hide here for a while." Hanju asked, "In other words, you might bring us more trouble?" "You're really... well, you can say that." "Then, can I ask you to leave, senior?" "A grand unity mystic immortal dares to be so reckless. You're too much. Do you know who I am?" "What? Are you the Heavenly Father?" "Who is the Heavenly Father?" "The Heavenly Emperor's father." "Oh, I'm even stronger than that." Hanju's heart skipped a beat. Could it be true? Could this fellow really be a mighty figure? Couldn't find anything. It was as if this person didn't exist. This time, Hanju was even more nervous. If there's no other way, I might as well run away with Liu Bei. Although it was his good brother's inheritance, there was no need to guard it. Thinking of this, Hanju wanted to retreat. "All right, you're impressive. I'll let you have it." Hanju snorted and looked at Liu Bei. "Let's go." Liu Bei was stunned. "We're leaving just like that, good." He didn't have to worry all the time now. "Wait." The thin figure hurriedly stopped Hanju and said angrily, "Why are you so spineless?" Hanju said, "You're so powerful. Can I defeat you? Although you can't win, how do you know if you don't try? Forget it, it's too dangerous." "You brat." The thin figure was speechless. This was the first time he had encountered such an oddity. There were many timid people, but they were not as confident as Hanju. Moreover, he didn't reveal any aura at all. "This fellow, interesting. Pan Xin has a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, 1 star. Hanju saw the line of words in front of him and hurriedly checked Pan Xin's information through interpersonal relationships. Pan Xin, cultivation unknown. One of the first living beings after the creation of the universe. He has experienced the immeasurable calamity. As he is afraid of being discovered by the ancient master of calamity, he especially infiltrated the Sword Dao River. Due to your nature, he has developed an interest in you. Current favorability, 1 star. So impressive, one of the first living beings after the creation of the universe. Even the Heavenly Emperor didn't have such an identity. The key was that this fellow's surname was Pan. Hanju couldn't help but think of Pangu. Could he be a descendant of Pangu himself? For a moment, Hanju's imagination ran wild, and he became even more nervous. The unknown cultivation level meant that the other party had surpassed the Immortal Emperor realm. What should he do when facing such an existence? "Senior, I'll give you this river. I won't reveal your existence. That's all. Goodbye," Hanju hurriedly said. Then, he raised his hand and pressed Liu Bei's shoulder, preparing to escape with him. "Wait. I don't want your Sword Dao River. I don't want to suffer great karma," Pan Xin hurriedly shouted. A mysterious force directly sealed the Sword Dao River, preventing Hanju from jumping out. "Crap, am I going to die today?" Hanju's heart sank. "Kid, don't be afraid. I'm a senior. How can I make things difficult for a junior? This river is still yours. I'm only staying here for a period of time. I won't let you suffer. I can teach you a mystical power. How about that?" Pan Xin snorted. He felt that the juniors of the immortal world were getting worse and worse. Hanju could only sigh. "All right." Pan Xin flashed in front of him. He raised his right hand and stretched out 3 fingers. "I have 3 mystical powers that you can choose from. First, the mystical power of domination that can kill enemies in an instant. Second, the mystical power of karma. You will endure no karma when killing enemies. You will survive the immeasurable calamity. Third, the mystical power of movement. In battle, You can easily avoid the attacks of powerful enemies and also travel through the myriad worlds. Hanju said without hesitation, I choose the third one. Stunned, Pan Xian said, the first mystical power is the strongest. You don't want to learn it? The second mystical power is even more useful. Hanju shook his head and said, no need. I'll choose the third one so that I can escape next time. This kid, Pan Xian, was silent. Pan Xian's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability, 2 stars. Looking at the line of words in front of him, Hanju raised his eyebrows. Could it be that they were the same kind of people? It was very likely. If this fellow was not cowardly, he wouldn't be hiding here and bickering with a junior like him. Pan Xian raised his hand and pointed at his forehead. Before Hanju could react, his consciousness felt an impact, and a large amount of memories surged into his mind. Mystical power, great traversal divine shadow. After some time, Hanju's consciousness finally woke up. Liu Bei was sitting beside him. Pan Xian had returned to his original spot. Hanju didn't know what he was doing, but his back was still wretched. Hanju sorted out the memories of the great traversal divine shadow. He was pleasantly surprised. He just happened to lack such a mystical power. In battle, it could allow one's speed and reaction to be elevated. It could split into divine shadows and confuse the opponent. It could also directly travel through myriad worlds. It was extremely powerful. Hanju instructed Liu Bei before returning to the connate cave abode. He had top-notch movement technique potential, so he could definitely grasp the great traversal divine shadow. But he didn't want to be too involved with Pan Xian. What if he performed too well and the latter wanted to take him in as a disciple? Pan Xian was powerful, but he had an even greater enemy. That so-called ancient master of calamity sounded ridiculously strong. He was definitely stronger than the heavenly emperor, so he did not want to take the risk. Hanju sat on the bed and immediately started to comprehend the great traversal divine shadow. Several days later, Hanju successfully grasped it. He immediately used this mystical power, and 2 figures flew out from his body. They were identical to him and emitted purple light. Hanju sensed that their aura was identical to his. Could it be that the great traversal divine shadow could help him fight? Hanju retracted the 2 divine shadows and started the simulation trial. He would directly challenge the heavenly emperor. 2 breaths later, Hanju opened his eyes. Damn it, the opponent was too strong. The reason why he had survived for a second was that the heavenly emperor had first destroyed the divine shadows before killing him. He couldn't escape even if he tried. Hanju had no choice but to switch his opponent to Jiang Yi. He immediately felt better. He relied on the great traversal divine shadow to play with him. Even if Jiang Yi tried his best, he couldn't touch the corner of his main body's clothes. Chapter 259 Immeasurable Emperor, Dragon Race's Invasion. After playing the simulation trial for 2 hours, Hanju became more proficient in using the great traversal divine shadow. He was very satisfied with this mystical power. Currently, he could at most execute 9 great traversal divine shadows at the same time. Every great traversal divine shadow could erupt with the same powerful strength as his main body. This was very terrifying. The flaw was that it consumed too much dermic power. Although the dermic powers of an immortal emperor were endless, there was a limit to the amount of recovery. However, when the output of dermic powers exceeded the amount of recovery, it would result in a burden or even a loss. This flaw was nothing. Hanju would defeat his opponent in the shortest time possible. If his opponent far exceeded him, there was no need to fight. Hanju was in a good mood, so he took out the Book of Misfortune and started celebrating. Several months later, Hanju was about to cultivate when he suddenly recalled the immeasurable calamity. Wait, Pan Xian had experienced the immeasurable calamity. If he asked him, he would definitely be able to obtain a more accurate answer. With that thought, Hanju's essence soul jumped into the Sword Dao River. He quickly arrived behind Pan Xian and asked respectfully, Senior, can I ask you about the immeasurable calamity? Pan Xian turned around and asked, What do you want to ask? Is the immeasurable calamity coming? How much longer until it comes? How long will it last? TSK, you're not simple. You can actually sense the providence of the immeasurable calamity. That's right, the next calamity is about to arrive. The immeasurable calamity is different from other calamities. It might take tens of thousands of years to rise, but it can also last for tens of thousands of years. In history, the fastest immeasurable calamity lasted for nearly 10,000 years. Currently, it's only the beginning. To begin, it still has to wait for the person meant to face the calamity to mature. The person meant to face the calamity? Yes, every immeasurable calamity has a person who will face it. He will be the trigger to starting it. At that time, the negative karma of the world will spread, and all living beings will develop inner demons. They will fall into endless slaughter until the heavenly Tao feels balanced, and only then will the calamity dissipate. Hanju was deep in thought. This immeasurable calamity was an elimination game, battle royale. When the remaining people reached a certain number, the calamity would disappear. Wasn't the best way to survive the immeasurable calamity to hide? Then, he didn't have to fight for first place. Hanju asked, "Senior, did you survive the immeasurable calamity before?" Pan Xan immediately raised his nose proudly. Of course. I've transcended too many immeasurable calamities. Those who can obtain great providence in the immeasurable calamity can become the master of calamity and have endless providence, gaining immortality even in the face of countless tribulations. Pan Xan's words made Hanju think of the heavenly emperor and the demon emperor. They were both immeasurable emperors, so that was what the immeasurable emperor meant. Pan Xan smiled and said, "Boy, if you survive this immeasurable calamity, I'll take you in as my disciple. On account of our affinity." Hanju raised his eyebrows and asked, "Can we avoid the next immeasurable calamity after passing it?" Pan Xan said casually, "Not necessarily. The immeasurable calamity might depend on karma. Karma is difficult to measure. For example, if you want to avoid the calamity, your beloved Tao companion or disciple will be killed in the calamity. Do you want revenge? If you do, you will enter the calamity and won't be able to escape. It's very difficult for a person to completely avoid karma. Even if you can bear not to save them, the disciples, friends, and relatives who wanted you to save them will hate you. After the calamity ends, you will turn against each other and cause trouble for the next calamity. Besides, the immeasurable calamity itself is a great opportunity to kill enemies and snatch providence. In the calamity, one can constantly surpass their limits. Many deity realm and even zenith heaven immortals don't have such high talent. They rely on the immeasurable calamity to seize providence. With your cultivation level, it's difficult for you to avoid the tribulation because you can't find a place where you can completely avoid it." Towards the end, Pan Xan's tone was filled with disdain. Hanju didn't feel offended. He bowed and thanked him before quickly leaving. Pan Xan found it strange. This kid seemed to be very serious. Forget it. He couldn't be bothered to deal with him. Pan Xan's right shoulder continued to shake. 10 years later, Hanju left his cultivation state again and started cursing the enemies. Knowing that the immeasurable calamity was coming, Hanju hoped to curse all his enemies to death. At that time, he could avoid calamity in peace. In addition, he had stricter requirements for the disciples' cultivation. Everyone had to reach a goal within a certain period of time. If they failed, they would be severely punished. Hanju didn't want these disciples to be weak and wait for him to save them when the calamity arrived. For a time, the Cultivate diligently become Immortal Mountain stirred up a trend of cultivation. Even Chu didn't dare to be careless anymore. On this day, Hanju was still cursing the enemy when he suddenly felt a terrifying aura. A black crack appeared at the end of the world, and wisps of terrifying black aura seeped out. Hanju sensed dozens of auras. The strongest was a Grand Unity Golden Immortal, while the weakest was a Grand Unity True Immortal. Hanju immediately contacted the security guard, White-Robed Buddha, and asked him to block it. The White-Robed Buddha immediately headed over. Hanju continued cursing the enemy. He couldn't panic when facing trouble, especially when cursing the enemy. He couldn't be interrupted. Once he was interrupted, Hanju's mood would turn bad. Outside the cave, the Fusong tree shook violently again, causing the black hell chicken, Ada, and Xiao Air to be unable to stay on it in peace. Long Hao sensed something and suddenly stood up, looking at the sky. "What's wrong?" Han One asked curiously. Longhao's gaze was solemn as he muttered, I sense the aura of the dragon race. He also had the bloodline of a true dragon, so he felt it very strongly. Sun Chang'an also looked into the distance and muttered, the trouble of the reroll world is coming. He didn't panic. After all, his master was here, heavenly court, in a spacious hall. Feng Liang sat in a huge cauldron. The medicine boiled and burned his body red. Morong Qi stood beside the cauldron staring at him. Senior, I'm fine. Go back. You don't have to look after me. Feng Liang opened his eyes and forced a smile. Morong Qi shook his head and said, this medicine contains the blood essence of a demon saint. It's extremely domineering and cannot be taken lightly. You don't have to care about me. Feng Liang gave up helplessly. He changed the topic and said, recently, His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor is selecting a new Great General. Do you want to participate? Great General was in existence higher than a Heavenly General. Currently, there were only the 3 Great Generals in the Heavenly Court. Morong Qi's cultivation speed was extremely fast. He had already reached the Grand Unity Mystic Immortal Realm. With such talent, he had a chance to become a Great General. In addition to his previous life's identity, no immortal god dared to refute. Although Morong Qi's cultivation was not outstanding, immortals greeted him wherever he went. Not long ago, the martial god general had even looked for him to reminisce. Morong Qi smiled and said, His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor has already talked to me. I will participate and help Grandmaster gain a foothold. Grandmaster is most afraid of trouble. If he comes to the Heavenly Court in the future, we will also help him fend off trouble. Feng Liang nodded and asked with a reminiscent expression, by the way, what cultivation level do you think Grandmaster is at now? After coming to the Heavenly Court, due to his aptitude and identity, he learned about the immortal world, and his knowledge increased greatly. Morong Qi said, Grandmaster has always been mysterious. I suspect that he himself is an ancient mighty figure, but he has always been hiding in the mortal world. Have you ever seen Grandmaster helpless or in a sorry state? No enemy can withstand a single blow from him. Chapter 260 Killing the Enemies, Wrath of the Demon Emperor. I also think that our potentials are already too strong, but Grandmaster always makes us feel that he's unfathomable. Most importantly, Grandmaster doesn't go out to train and is in seclusion every day. Feng Liang sighed with reverence. It was all thanks to Han Ju that he could be where he was today. The immortal god said that he was the son of heaven and earth, but he knew that he was mediocre. The so-called son of heaven and earth was also the providence that his grandmaster had obtained for him. In his heart, Han Ju was always the most important person. Morong Qi teased. Perhaps Grandmaster is an avatar of the Tao ancestor? Only peerless mighty figures need to constantly enter seclusion, because each time they do, it will take tens of thousands of years. In that case, our Grandmaster is actually not cultivating diligently. He hasn't even started his seclusion. Feng Liang felt that it made sense and nodded. Of course, he only felt that Han Ju was a peerless mighty figure and not the Tao ancestor. The Tao ancestor was an illusory legend that might not really exist. The two of them chatted casually on the other side, and the Imperial Garden. D. Tai Bai stopped in front of the Heavenly Emperor and bowed. Your Majesty, the true dragon race has been restless recently. A crown prince even went to the reroll world. With Han Ju's personality, he might, although Han Ju was timid, he always wanted to prevent future trouble, cowardly and ruthless at the same time. The Heavenly Emperor's eyes flickered. Ignore them. If Han Ju is from the Heavenly Court, the true dragon race is only related to me. You should know which is more important. I belong to the Heavenly Court now and not the true dragon race. I understand. Report the situation of the reroll world to me anytime. Yes. D. Tai Bai quickly left. The Heavenly Emperor put down his wine cup and snorted. Oh dragon race, looks like you haven't forgotten your ambitions. Since you're not willing to support me, don't blame me for being ruthless. The battle between the white-robed Buddha and the dragon race lasted for several days. In the end, the white-robed Buddha and the Grand Unity Golden Immortal leading the dragon race were both injured. The dragon race retreated, and the white-robed Buddha hurriedly found Hanju. The two of them gathered in the forest. The white-robed Buddha had a bitter expression as he said, "Senior, the one who came this time is the true dragon race's 13th prince. This person is also a genius. If he comes again, I won't be able to hold them off." Hanju asked, "Why are they here?" "They want to occupy the reroll world. This world's Providence is too strong now. Soon, the upper limit of the mortal world will be raised to the Earth Immortal Realm. It's fine. I'll kill him the next time he comes." "Yes, Senior." The white-robed Buddha heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Hanju was willing to help, everything would be fine. Hanju asked meaningfully, "When will you return to the Buddhist sect or to the Chan school?" The white-robed Buddha said without hesitation, "I definitely can't go back to the Buddhist sect. They have already sent people to hunt me down. As for the Chan school, that's already in the past. The Heavenly Venerable clearly doesn't want to fight anymore. I'll stay in the reroll world in the future." Coming back to his senses and realizing something, he immediately knelt in front of Hanju. "Senior, please accept me. I'm willing to serve you." Hanju smiled and said, "Sure. From now on, you're a member of the hidden sect. As for your status, it depends on your performance later on." Hidden sect, the white-robed Buddha was deep in thought. Could it be that there was a huge force behind Hanju? No wonder, he was instantly excited and hurriedly promised himself that he would work hard. The two of them exchanged a few more pleasantries before parting ways. Hanju returned to the connate cave abode with a solemn expression. Dragon race, at this rate, the immeasurable calamity would happen. He had no choice but to enter the calamity. Even if he didn't want to fight with others, the enemies would still come knocking. How could he withstand the attacks of all his enemies? No, he had to think of a way to curse all of them. Hanju made up his mind and decided to go all out. "I have 54 trillion years of lifespan. What's wrong with spending just 100 million years?" Hanju thought silently and then took out the Book of Misfortune. He would first curse the Heavenly Rage Buddha and then the 13th Prince. This way, even if he died, the true dragon race might not think of him. Hanju started to curse. 10 days later, he still did not stop and continued cursing the Heavenly Rage Buddha. The Heavenly Rage Buddha was the one who had given Sun Chang'an the love tribulation. His hatred had reached 4.5 stars, so he had to die. He cursed for a month. Hanju's lifespan decreased by 1,000 years, but he soon noticed an email notification. "Because of your curse, your enemy Heavenly Rage Buddha destroyed his devil heart and soul. He has completely perished." Putting aside this crazy curse, Hanju had cursed the Heavenly Rage Buddha countless times before. He was already going mad. He died. Hanju smiled proudly and started cursing the true dragon race's 13th prince. 9 days later, Hanju saw another notification. "The 13th prince of the true dragon race suffered from chi deviation due to your curse. He wreaked havoc in the clan and was killed by his elders." Hanju was amused. After the system upgraded, it could actually detect people who had no interpersonal relationships with him. This was a good thing. Hanju continued cursing. Next was the nine-tailed demon empress of the demon race. This woman had lost her son and must have been thinking about killing him. A month later, "Your enemy nine-tailed demon empress suffered from chi deviation due to your curse. Fortunately, the demon emperor protected her soul." Hanju swore and continued cursing. "Another month passed. Because of your curse, the cultivation of your enemy nine-tailed demon empress has fallen. Fortunately, the demon emperor protected her soul. Again, because of your curse, your enemy nine-tailed demon empress couldn't withstand the agony and died. Her body and soul were destroyed entirely." The image of the nine-tailed demon empress disappeared. Hanju had lost tens of thousands of years of his lifespan. Not only was his heart bleeding, but his eyes were also bleeding. However, it was worth it. He stopped cursing, planning to rest for a few months. In a lofty palace, a group of maids knelt on the ground, trembling. A mighty figure stood in front of them. It was the Demon Emperor. The Demon Emperor was 100 feet tall and wore a dragon-patterned red robe. He had a cold expression and a pair of horns on both sides of his crown. 9 small suns floated behind him, making him look extremely dazzling. The Demon Emperor's expression was cold, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. He said in a low voice, "I've only gone out for a while and the Demon Empress died? Has no enemy infiltrated during this period of time? No. The Demon Empress was not in the right state," a servant girl shivered. Before she could finish speaking, the Demon Emperor suddenly waved his sleeve and killed them. They were all reduced to ashes. There was no time to even wail. The Demon Emperor overflowed with killing intent, causing the hall to tremble. He pinched his fingers but was utterly unable to deduce who had caused the death of the 9-tailed Demon Empress, could only deduce one book. A mysterious book without words, supreme treasure. Someone was using this treasure to curse his Demon Empress to death. The Demon Emperor frowned. He couldn't sense the owner of this book. "Don't let me find you. Otherwise, you won't even be able to beg for death." The Demon Emperor's eyes flickered as he muttered to himself, his tone filled with killing intent. After resting for half a year, Hanju held the Book of Misfortune and pulled out his interpersonal relationships. He began to screen the next enemy. The Demon Emperor surpassed the Immortal Emperor realm. He couldn't curse rashly. It was very difficult to curse him to death. He might even be discovered. In that case, the target would be the Undying Emperor. Back then, he had been killed by the Divine General, but there was still a wisp of his soul hiding somewhere. Had to kill all these threats.